Justice Department has this new fund that was announced today, $1.7 billion.
Yeah.
Why should taxpayers pay for the January 6th?
Well, it's been very well received, I have to tell you. I know very little about it. I wasn't involved in the whole creation of it and the negotiation. But this is reimbursing people that were horribly treated. It's anti-weaponization. They've been weaponized. They've been, in some cases, imprisoned wrongly. They paid legal fees that they didn't have. They've gone bankrupt. Their lives have been destroyed. And they turn out to be right. I mean, it was a terrible period of time in the history of our country. And they worked on it. I know the Justice Department, it's really been working on it very hard. There's been numerous other occasions over the years where things like this have been done, but these were people that were weaponized and really treated brutally by a system that was so corrupt, with corrupt people running it, and they're getting reimbursed for their legal fees and the other things that they had to suffer.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. That was Donald Trump defending a taxpayer-funded slush fund for January 6th insurrectionists. Let's remember who we're talking about. The January 6th rioters weren't tourists. They were a mob that beat police officers, hunted the vice president, and tried to overturn a free and fair election. Trump pardoned more than 1,500 of them, and his pardon attorney, Ed Martin, has been openly campaigning to write them checks ever since. And yesterday, the administration announced the vehicle, a nearly $2 billion so-called settlement for those rioters. One of them could well be an insurrectionist named Andrew Paul Johnson, who was pardoned by the Trump only to go on to molest two 12-year-olds in Florida. He told one victim he expected $10 million from Trump and promised to share it if the child kept quiet. Last week, he was sentenced to life in prison. And on Monday, Senator Chris Van Hollen confronted the acting Attorney General Todd Blanche about it. Remember, Todd Blanche isn't just the official charged with managing this slush fund. He was Donald Trump's personal lawyer. Here's the exchange.
Let me go back to this slush fund, because there's also an individual who, after being pardoned by the president, went on to molest two children. And that person actually tried to buy the silence of these children by saying that he would pay them some of the funds that he was hoping to get from your slush fund. Can you commit to making the rules so that that person is not eligible for a payout under this fund?
Well, you're obviously lying in your question, because there's no way that this person committed to that. The slush fund, as you call it, which is not, didn't exist.
I'm sure,
but I can commit.
Mr. Attorney General, don't ever do that again. I am reporting
what again?
What he said. He said on the expectation that he hoped to get some of the funds from a payout. He's been hearing
you said from the slush fund, Senator, and that didn't exist when he said that.
This is the fund that the president and all of you have been telegraphing all along that you're going to use to help the president's friends. Can you point to a single telegraph I made? What telegraph did I make? I have a last question for you. Do you know that it is a criminal offense to lie to Congress?
I am very well aware of that.
I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Todd Blanche wouldn't commit, and that's the point, because this isn't just about rewarding Trump's allies. It's about keeping a violent mob on retainer. The midterms are 6 months away. Trump's side is looking at losses it can't absorb. The message to every pardoned rioter is stand back and stand by. I brought Kris Goldsmith in to break it down for us. He's an Army combat vet, founder of Veterans Fighting Fascism, and the breakout star of the MeidasTouch documentary about January 6th, Against All Enemies. Here's our conversation. Kris, thanks for joining us. Bring us up to speed on this outrageous $1.776 billion slush fund to pay off the January 6th insurrectionists.
Yeah, first, let's just get this out of the way. We need to stop using Trump's branding. It's nearly $2 billion. Like, it's the same thing that he did with the big bullshit bill. We can't use his branding. What Donald Trump has done is he created a legal excuse to fund his own private army. And I'm not talking about ICE anymore. I'm talking about his own private militia. The idea, the impetus behind this nearly $2 billion slush fund came from the insurrectionists themselves. They bound together as, nearly or over 1,600 of them. they all want to be millionaires, right? It's nice, easy money. So if they all become millionaires, that takes $1.6 billion. Well, the Proud Boys are also suing the Department of Justice for something like malicious investigations or something like that, because they got prosecuted for attempting to decapitate our government and end our democracy, right? But that lawsuit is ongoing. So you add that 100 million to the $1.6 billion funds that would make every one of the charged insurrectionists millionaires. You've got your 17 number. You add the 76 for the branding, but what that really is a little icing on the cake for Donald Trump to lick off himself. Now, this, I think, is the most dangerous thing that Donald Trump has done yet, because funding ICE and even making ICE as well funded, better funded than the United States Marine Corps, all of that money gets traced. All of those contracts, they're all records. All of the employment records for ICE. There's ways that we can investigate and get to the bottom of everything that ICE has done. Might take us years. The Trump administration is doing what it can to destroy evidence, but the evidence exists. If you make 1,600 insurrectionists millionaires overnight, 95% of them will go off and become meth addicts and they'll die within 5 years. That's what happens to those types of people when they win the lotto. But the remaining 5%, they're coordinated, they're experienced, they're organizers. It's not just the neo-Nazis and the Proud Boys that we need to worry about. It's the organizers behind Turning Point USA that also got investigated by the DOJ and the January 6th committee, because Turning Point USA chartered 60 buses, each of which I think have, a couple of or 100 or more people that they can carry on them, right? So thousands of insurrectionists were bussed in by Turning Point USA. Turning Point USA getting an infusion of cash, for the purpose of having participated in committing a violent insurrection on behalf of Donald Trump. Like, what does anyone think this money could get used for but to organize more political violence?
Hey everyone, it's Ken. Super quick break to remind you that I've got a Substack page. Please consider subscribing for exclusive content and bi-weekly Substack lives. And for the next month, every paid subscription goes towards my upcoming reporting trip to Ukraine. Thanks for the support. The link is below. Slava Ukraine. I'm so glad you're focusing on the future, because so much of the conversation up until now has been describing this slush fund as restitution, or even worse, reparations. Not my phrasing. They're actually calling it reparations. It's not about the past. It's certainly not about justice. It's about funding a private militia for the next time. Yeah. For the next time. Because they, with everything Trump does, from the war with Iran to, mocking the plight of Americans complaining about the prices of things, he is sending the signal that he doesn't really care how the next election turns out. He's got a backup plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And everybody knows that Donald Trump stiffs people that he owes money to. Donald Trump does not like the idea that he owes anyone anything. That's why he's been stiffing his contractors forever. These guys painting the Lincoln Memorial, I'm not certain they're getting paid. It's not his money, but he likes not paying people. The idea that he would see it in his heart to be like, oh, these insurrectionists suffered for me. They made sacrifices. They went to prison. They had to sit in court and face reality. He doesn't have any sympathy for them. What he sees is a willing bunch of idiots who have been further radicalized because the entire Republican Party has now embraced them in January 6th, trying to gaslight all of us. And the January 6th insurrectionists have gaslit themselves. There are January 6th insurrectionists who were convicted of beating cops because they did it on camera without masks on, and they have convinced themselves that it was actually Antifa who did January 6th. They really, truly believe that. So Donald Trump knows that if he just gets a small percentage of these maniacs who've already shown that they are willing to commit violence on his behalf, if he provides them resources, he knows that they're going to take that money and give it right back to him. And that could be in the form of buying arms and armor and, I don't know, armored vehicles for furtherance of the Trump agenda. Or that could be, buying Trump phones that never actually show up, or golden sneakers, or anything else. Donald Trump will do everything he can to squeeze that $1.7 billion out of his own supporters and back to himself. That's either going to come in the form of bullets and bombs waged against Donald Trump's perceived enemies, or he's just going to sell them garbage.
I want to talk about those supporters in a second, one of them in particular, but can you remind us how this settlement came about, or this tentative settlement? There was a $10 billion suit, Donald Trump basically suing himself. The judge said, there's no plaintiff, there's no claimant here, like there's no case. I
think that people should follow Liz Oyer, the lawyer. She's the former pardon attorney for the Department of Justice. She has been educating people on how the January 6th insurrectionists pardons and clemencies happened, and all of the corrupt pardons have come since. Liz Oyer is, I think, extraordinarily reserved, as a good lawyer for the DOJ should be. She said it best. I saw a video where she described what this deal as a criminal conspiracy between the President of the United States and the Attorney General, Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche, the acting Attorney General, who is Donald Trump's former private defense attorney. So let's start there. There was a criminal conspiracy that we are all watching happen in the open, that Donald Trump and the Attorney General, Todd Blanche, have orchestrated. And that is that Donald Trump would sue himself, right, have his defense attorney be the defense for the government, and then they would come to a settlement that only benefited the garbage plaintiff. Now, there is such a thing as a fund. There's an uncapped fund, meaning like Congress doesn't have to allocate funds in the budget every year for it. People can sue the government, the federal government, for going beyond, for doing things that break the law. Like when the IRS leaks someone's tax records, which is what Donald Trump's claim was about, there is some liability and there's some restitution that should be offered. But Donald Trump never went about proving $10 billion in damages. The man, continued to, he won an election after the fact. His wealth exploded after he committed the insurrection, after the tax forms leaked. He could not prove $10 billion in damages. There's no reason that number made any sense. But you have to come up with a ridiculously inflated first offer to make the $2 billion, which is an ungodly amount of money, seem more reasonable. And in the eyes of Republicans and the GOP, that's what they're absorbing. That's what they're absorbing as the truth. Oh, maybe that $10,000, that $10 billion was excessive. But $2 billion, that's only a tiny fraction of $10 billion, which is more than, all of the people watching this show. Everyone who watches this episode, combine all of our personal wealth, it will not equal $2 billion. That is a lot of fucking money.
That was an excerpt of my conversation with Kris Goldsmith. For the full interview, check out my Substack. The link's below. Thanks.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.